Welcome to the deep dive. We cut through the noise, look at fascinating sources, and pull out the key insights so you can get informed fast. Today, we're digging into something pretty provocative. It's an idea that really challenges how a lot of us think about American history. The basic idea that the United States has never, ever been truly unified, at least not when you look at its core beliefs. Our guide for this is the U.S. ideological dualism analysis, and it makes this powerful case that America isn't just, a melting pot. It's more like a constant internal tug of war between two really fundamental ways of seeing the world. So this deep dive, we're going to unpack that. We'll explore how this deep-seated split has shaped, well, pretty much everything, from the country's birth right up to our digital age.
Exactly. And our mission here, if you like, is to trace where these two competing souls, these two worldviews came from. The analysis calls them Hierarchical America and Egalitarian America. And understanding this foundational conflict, which is often kind of hidden, gives you a really fresh way to look at the nation's past, its complicated present, and maybe even its future.
Okay, so let's get into this ideological dualism. The paper makes a point of saying this isn't like, say, the back and forth in a parliamentary system, or even what Bruce Ackerman calls constitutional dualism, those big shifts in lawmaking. So how is this dualism different? What makes it so foundational?
Yeah, the key thing is, this isn't just about disagreements over policy. It runs deeper. It's about two fundamentally different visions for what the nation is, or what it should be. Let's start with hierarchical America. Now, this view pulls a lot from classical thinking, traditional political philosophy, its core values, things like order, authority, stability, and a belief, really, in natural distinctions between people.
Okay, so like hierarchy is natural, even good.
Sort of, yeah. Maybe necessary for social cohesion. It tends to have a pretty pessimistic view of human nature, too. Think Hobbes, maybe.
No.
The idea that people are inherently flawed, maybe selfish, and need strong government to keep things on track for the common good.
Right, so that points towards a certain kind of government.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Centralized, strong federal government, ideally led by what they might see as a natural aristocracy, the wise, the well-born, the experts. And the language they use often talks about national greatness, institutional authority, the wisdom of tradition, that sort of thing.
Okay, that paints a clear picture. So how does egalitarian America contrast with that? What are its core ideas? Where's the main clash?
Well, egalitarian America is pretty much the philosophical opposite in many ways.
Yeah.
Its roots are more in Enlightenment liberalism, radical Whig ideology.
That British anti-authority streak.
That's the one. Highly suspicious of centralized power. So its core values are all about individual liberty, government by consent, social mobility, opportunity. And it's deeply skeptical of concentrated power. So it pushes for decentralized government, states' rights, strict limits on federal power to prevent tyranny.
And its view of people, more optimistic.
Definitely more optimistic, more lock-in, you could say. Believes ordinary people are rational, capable of governing themselves if they're educated and not pushed around. So its language is full of individual liberty, natural rights, consent of the governed, all that. And what's really fascinating here, this tension isn't just philosophical debate. It might actually have deeper psychological roots. Some research suggests that hierarchical thinking, organizing things by status, dominance, it's something we learn early. It can almost be like a cognitive default setting.
Huh. Like it's easier to think that way.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Whereas egalitarian values, treating everyone as equal, it seems to take more conscious, deliberate mental effort. You have to actively suppress those ingrained hierarchical tendencies.
Interesting. So that might explain why hierarchical arguments seem to keep popping up, especially when things get stressful.
Exactly. It helps explain their resilience in American politics. And it highlights the constant effort needed to actually maintain an egalitarian society. It doesn't just happen.
And when you look back at American history through this lens, you really see that effort, that constant tug of war. The analysis argues the U.S. wasn't born unified at all. It came out of what it calls a crucible of compromise between these clashing worldviews.
Absolutely. Look at the revolution itself. In many ways, it was an alliance of convenience. You had that radical Whig ideology, as Bernard Bailyn showed, very skeptical of central power, very focused on popular sovereignty. That's the bedrock of egalitarian America.
Right.
Then Gordon Wood argues the revolution unleashed this unrelenting egalitarian ethos among regular people, a real social upheaval.
But there was a tension there, wasn't there, with the
A
leaders?
huge tension.
Yeah.
Elite leaders were using all this egalitarian language, but often they still wanted to keep their own status. You see it in things like the Society of the Cincinnati, this exclusive club for former Army officers, a very hierarchical impulse trying to create a new American aristocracy.
Hmm.
And we often forget the loyalists, right? They represent that hierarchical America in its purest form. They valued stability, the existing order, over abstract liberty.
So even the Declaration's promise, all men are created equal.
Was instantly compromised, wasn't it, by the reality of slavery, the status of women, property requirements for voting, all deeply hierarchical. So the founding wasn't one single vision. It was a negotiated truce, a compromise from day one.
That's such a crucial point. It wasn't a unified start, but a truce. And that truce got tested almost immediately, didn't it? After the Revolution, the Articles of Confederation, super decentralized, very egalitarian in structure, they just didn't work, did they?
No, they proved too weak pretty quickly. And events like Shays' Rebellion in 86, 87, that really spooked the elites.
Farmers shutting down courts.
Yeah. For the hierarchical thinkers, it was proof. Proof that pure democracy leads to chaos, to mobocracy. That fear was a huge driver for the Constitutional Convention.
So the fight over ratifying the Constitution was the first big post-revolution battleground for these two sides.
Absolutely. The Anti-Federalists, they embody that egalitarian fear. This new central government is too powerful.
While the Federalists were saying, no, we need an energetic government for order, for stability.
Exactly. And the Constitution itself, it really was a masterpiece of compromise, a framework designed to manage this ongoing conflict, not to end it.
And you saw that conflict immediately in the first party system, right? Hamilton versus Jefferson.
Oh, absolutely. And it wasn't just policy squabbles. It was fundamental. Hamilton's vision, clearly hierarchical. As Treasury Secretary, he wanted a powerful central state, kind of like Britain. His whole financial plan, assuming state debts, the national bank, promoting manufacturing.
It was about tying the wealthy elites to the new government.
Precisely, creating a stable ruling class. It came from that pessimistic Hobbesian view. People are selfish, they need strong leaders, the rich, educated and well-born. It was government for the people, definitely, but explicitly not by the people.
Where is Jefferson?
Jefferson was pure egalitarian America. He and his Democratic Republicans envisioned this decentralized republic of independent farmers. Landowners, virtuous, self-sufficient.
States' rights, limited federal government.
Strict interpretation of the Constitution, yes. All flowing from that optimistic, locking view that common people can govern themselves.
So the Revolution of 1800, when Jefferson won the presidency, that was a win for the egalitarian.
It was seen as a huge victory, yeah. But it didn't kill off the hierarchical impulse, not at all. That fundamental disagreement was now baked into the system.
And as America pushed west in the 19th century, that expansion just seemed to amplify the conflict, didn't it? It wasn't just about land. It became a battle over the nation's character, really blowing up that constitutional truce.
That's spot on. The War of 1812 is a great example, often called the Second War for Independence, but it really exposed these deep fault lines. The push for war mostly came from those egalitarian war hawks, younger guys from the South and West.
What was their argument?
They framed it as defending American sovereignty, national honor against British impressment. Grabbing sailors off American ships. That was an insult to free citizens. Plus, they wanted to maybe annex Canada more land for those yeoman farmers and deal with Native American resistance on the frontier. It fit that Jeffersonian vision.
But not everyone was on board.
Not at all. The Federalists, the voice of hierarchical America, especially in New England, they hated it. It messed with their maritime trade, their economy. Their opposition got so intense, it led to the Hartford Convention in 1814-15.
Where they talked about secession.
They debated it, yeah, and constitutional amendments to protect their regional power. It was a hierarchical faction basically saying, we'll break the country to keep our status.
But the war ended. Andrew Jackson won at New Orleans.
And it completely discredited the Federalists, wiped them out as a national force. And for a generation, it really cemented this kind of egalitarian nationalism.
Okay, so egalitarian America felt pretty strong after 1812, but where did the hierarchical side really surge back in the 19th century?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. If 1812 was egalitarianism flexing, the Mexican-American War, mid-century, was arguably hierarchical America's big 19th century project. This war was fueled by manifest destiny. And the analysis calls manifest destiny a hierarchical belief system, basically.
How so?
It dressed up aggressive expansion as God's plan, But at its core was this idea of Anglo-Saxon racial superiority, a destiny to civilize the continent. It was inherently hierarchical, and President Polk, he pretty much deliberately provoked the war, sent troops into disputed land to get the fight he wanted.
But there was pushback, right, an egalitarian critique. You mentioned Lincoln.
Absolutely, a powerful counter-narrative emerged. People like Congressman Abe Lincoln, Henry David Thoreau, lots of Northern Whigs, they slammed it as immoral aggression, and crucially, they saw it as a plot by the slave power, the Southern elite, to expand slavery, their hierarchical system.
Ah, so the land grab immediately became about slavery.
Instantly. The war brought in all this new territory and banned the Wilmot Proviso debate, trying to ban slavery in those new lands.
Which failed, but
But it blew up the old party system. Politics realigned completely along this stark sectional and ideological line, a hierarchical South demanding the right to spread slavery versus an increasingly egalitarian North focused on free soil.
setting the stage for the Civil War.
The ultimate violent showdown over this dualism and the Confederacy. It was the most explicit, philosophically grounded expression of hierarchical America you could imagine. Confederate VP Alexander Stephens, in his cornerstone speech, just laid it out. The Confederacy's foundation is, upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery is his natural and normal condition.
Wow. No mincing words there.
None.
Man.
And the secession documents from states like Mississippi, Texas, same thing. All about protecting slavery. States' rights was the justification, but the hierarchy was the reason.
And the Union cause started out differently, more hierarchical itself.
Initially, yes. Lincoln's goal was to preserve the Union, the existing structure, suppress the rebellion. It wasn't about ending slavery at first.
But the war changed that.
The war itself, the brutal logic of it, forced a change. And enslaved people played a huge role, freeing themselves by escaping to Union line self-emancipation. This, plus the moral weight, pushed Lincoln. His thinking evolved. You see it culminating in the Emancipation Proclamation and then the Gettysburg Address.
Reframing the war.
Exactly. Reframing it as a fight for a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. The Union became, almost reluctantly, an agent of egalitarian America. The war to save the old hierarchy became a revolution for a new, more egalitarian ideal. But even defeating the Confederacy didn't end the dualism.
Right, the lost cause ideology emerged.
Yeah, rewriting history, erasing slavery centrality, romanticizing the Old South. It was a powerful narrative tool to justify putting racial hierarchy back in place through Jim Crow. The fight just shifted ground.
So the conflict persists, even after the war. And moving into the 20th century, it's fascinating how the analysis shows both sides adapting. Hierarchical and egalitarian America start using different tactics, even swapping toolkits, right, to deal with things like industrialization, the Depression.
That's a really key pattern.
Yeah.
Take the Progressive era, roughly 1890s to 1920s. Their goals were often egalitarian. Curb corporate power, protect workers, expand voting rights.
Sounds good. But the methods?
The methods were often very hierarchical, creating big, powerful, centralized government agencies run by experts. Scientific management, bureaucracy, that was the solution, not necessarily popular movements.
A contradiction there.
A big one. You got food safety laws and trust busting, which sounds egalitarian. But you also got eugenics, immigration restrictions based on race, and a total failure to challenge Jim Crow's segregation in the South. Hierarchical means, sometimes for egalitarian ends, sometimes not. Then the New Deal in the 30s. That's probably the peak of this trend. FDR, facing the Depression, massively expands the federal government's power, very hierarchical structure.
But for egalitarian goals, like the social safety net.
Exactly. Social Security, the Wagner Act protecting unions, Fair Labor Standards Act establishing federal responsibility for people's economic well-being. Very egalitarian in aim.
But that expansion of power must have caused backlash.
Oh, huge backlash. Conservative opponents like the American Liberty League screamed, "State socialism," echoing those old Jeffersonian fears of central power. The dualism was alive and well, just focused now on the administrative state.
Which brings us closer to our time, to what the paper calls the Great Leveling and the Great Reaction. The Civil Rights Movement feels like a really unambiguous moment for egalitarian America, right?
Absolutely. A profound assertion of those core egalitarian principles, directly attacking Jim Crow, the most obvious entrenched system of racial hierarchy left. The movement's whole ideology was egalitarian, demanding the nation finally live up to the promises in the Declaration. And it worked, to a degree. It forced federal action.
The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act.
Landmark victories, probably the biggest egalitarian wins in a century. But that victory, along with other cultural shifts in the 60s, provoked an equally powerful hierarchical reaction.
The rise of the new. Right.
Exactly. Starting in the 70s, gaining steam in the 80s, it was explicitly anti-egalitarian in many ways. And it did something clever. It fused different impulses. It used libertarian language, free markets, limited government, things often associated with egalitarianism,
It used it to defend what?
to defend corporate economic hierarchies. And at the same time, it mobilized a huge grassroots base, especially religious conservatives, to defend traditional social hierarchies, family structures, gender roles, religious authority.
And Reagan's election in 1980 marked that shift.
It really signaled the success of that coalition. It shifted the whole national conversation away from the egalitarian focus of the 60s back towards individualism, tradition, and market-based hierarchies.
So now, this conflict, centuries old, is playing out in a totally new arena. The very architecture of modern technology, as the paper puts it. What does that mean for us today? How does this dualism show up in our digital world?
It means that core fight between hierarchical and egalitarian America is now being waged using digital tools. And AI, especially, is creating unprecedented tools for centralized hierarchical control. Governments are adopting AI for surveillance, think facial recognition, predictive policing. These algorithms can easily bake in existing biases, reinforcing hierarchy
And concentrating power.
immensely. Think about the push for massive centralized government databases, maybe a hypothetical Department of Government Efficiency, let's call it DOGE, aiming to streamline things, fight fraud. But critics see these as big, beautiful targets for surveillance. Mass data collection enabling top-down control.
And corporations are doing similar things.
Absolutely. The private sector uses AI for monitoring workers, algorithmic management, tracking keystrokes, movements. It's like the commodification of social control. Your data isn't just for ads anymore. It's used to shape your behavior. And look at the political fights over AI itself, like targeting woke AI.
Trying to build a specific worldview into the code.
Exactly. It's an attempt to encode a hierarchical worldview right into the digital infrastructure that increasingly runs our lives. State and corporate power working together. It's a powerful combination.
But there's a counter-movement, right? The decentralized rebellion, egalitarianism's answer in the digital age.
Yes, definitely. A strong countercurrent rooted in decentralization, using tech to disperse power, resist control. The whole open source software movement is a great example. Decentralized collaboration, peer production challenging those top-down corporate models. Think Linux, Wikipedia, built by communities.
And then there's blockchain and crypto.
Right, Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies. They're designed to be decentralized, distributed ledgers, peer-to-peer transactions, without needing a bank or central authority. It offers this potential, maybe unrealized, but the potential is there for a kind of technological fulfillment of the most extreme Jeffersonian and libertarian ideals. Trustless interaction, no powerful middlemen.
So connecting this back, the political polarization we see everywhere today.
It gets amplified massively by centralized social media algorithms. Now, if that psychological research is right, that hierarchical thinking is easier, a default, and if algorithms optimize for engagement, often favoring emotional, low effort, maybe more tribal content,
Then the tech itself might be tilting the scales, systematically amplifying hierarchical America.
it's a really important question the analysis raises. The fight isn't just about laws anymore. It's about the code that structures our information environment, our interactions. Who gets to write that code and with what values?
So let's try and wrap this up. The big takeaway from this deep dive, based on the analysis, it's that U.S. history isn't a straight line towards one goal. It's really the story of this enduring and unresolved conflict, this constant clash between hierarchical America order, authority, and egalitarian America, liberty, consent. It's baked in from the start.
Absolutely. That tension has been the engine driving American history. It shaped the founding compromises, Hamilton versus Jefferson. It exploded into violence in the 19th century, the War of 1812, the Mexican-American War culminating in the Civil War. In the 20th century, it adapted. You had the progressives in the New Deal using hierarchical tools for egalitarian aims, that whole paradox.
Followed by the civil rights movement's huge egalitarian push and then the new rights reaction.
Exactly. Each era replayed the conflict in a new way.
And now, the 21st century sees it playing out digitally. Technology is supercharging both sides, pushing both centralized control and decentralized freedom to new extremes. The future seems defined by that struggle, so maybe the unsettled, contradictory nature of the U.S. isn't a bug, it's the main feature, this constant internal fight. So here's something to think about as you go about your day. If hierarchical thinking is often easier, a cognitive default, and egalitarian values take conscious work, what's your role in shaping this digital future? How do you engage with these competing forces, these pushes towards either more control or more freedom in your own life, online and off? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Lots to chew on there.
It really is an ongoing story. These forces continue to shape America. I hope you keep noticing how this dualism plays out all around you. It's a powerful lens.